Hey everybody, welcome to Trading the Close. My name is Gareth Soloway, Chief Market Strategist here at VerifiedInvesting.com. Markets in sell mode again today, not as nasty as yesterday though, so again, that's a small positive. But one of the things that is a negative is that we saw Taiwan Semi earlier today leading the markets up, and then it lost it and went negative. It's come back to the flat line, but names like Advanced Micro Devices, AMD, are negative on the day and decently negative again after being down sharply. So a lot of these big cap techs under pressure. Even Apple is down significantly. We'll look at that chart in a bit. And we also have Netflix earnings just about to hit in a couple minutes. I'm going to bring that to you live as those numbers come out, and we'll watch to see what the chart does. All right, so what we want to do now, and first and foremost, I want to go to the action here in the markets and take a look. Here's the heat map. Again, look at the mega caps. A lot of red except for NVIDIA. NVIDIA catching a small bid up about 2.29% today. But again, there's Amazon, there's Apple, there's Microsoft, there's Alphabet. A lot of red out there on the screen. Now today again, we do have some of these other companies getting a little bit of a bid, so you can see there is a little spattering of green in the heat map, but nonetheless, the mega caps are what rule the markets, and they are pushing things to the downside. Taking a look right here, what do we have? We have the Dow Jones Industrial Average, which had a good day a few days ago, but again, getting hammered today, down 550 points. The NASDAQ down another 137 points, and the S&P 500 down 48 points. So again, we're not down 3% like the NASDAQ was yesterday, but it's another 0.75% adding to the downside again for the week. Now, if we're looking at oil down 1%, we have gold down 15 bucks, and Bitcoin is also down. None of these are that crazy of moves. That's, again, not a big story today. The story of the day continues to be the mega caps and earnings season. Taiwan Semi and then Netflix after the bell today that should be out in just a minute. Okay. I want to flip over to some charts and just go over a few things with you guys. Here is your intraday S&P 500. So what we want to look at here, and first and foremost, is that this is where we were a couple days ago, right? And then we had the big down day yesterday. It was down, a gap down, and then a lot of sideways chop. Today we opened a little bit higher when the tech stocks were up. Again, the Magnificent Seven were generally opening higher on the day, and then it just kind of went like that and right to the downside. And you can see again, as we're chopping here into the end of the day, we are close to the lows of the day. Now, the big question is, what will tomorrow bring? Tomorrow's Friday. And I will say this, it's probably all going to hinge on that Netflix report that will just be out in a second. All right, so again, interesting action in the S&P, continuing to see the selling. The NASDAQ 100 obviously leading to the downside. Take a look at Taiwan Semi today. Taiwan Semi was at one point up here, then it came down here, and now it's essentially flat on the day. And their report was very, very good. And I covered this in the morning game plan. And I want to go over it again today because it's really, really important. This morning I said to you guys when Taiwan Semi was up and most of the Mag 7 were up, I said, we had a big down candle yesterday. Here's my candle, right? And the question was today, were we going to get a big up candle? In which case that would be bullish, a reversal back up, that would be very bullish. Or were we going to get a small candle like this, which would be bearish? And in fact, what are we getting on the markets? You're actually getting continuation selling, not a huge candle, but you're continuing to see downside, and that is not a good thing. So there was one scenario where we would have been flipping back to more bullish for the markets, and that did not happen on the charts today. So again, with downside, it continues the downside move. Where could we go on the S&P 500? Let's flip over to the S&P 500 to the daily chart. And again, just to rehash, this was an amazing chart that I had highlighted to you guys multiple days in advance before this rollover. And what I love showing you guys is how we were in this channel and kept on hitting the upper end here and pulling back, and then upper end, upper end, upper end, finally broke. And then notice we hit and pulled back, hit, pulled back. And then what did I say was most likely going to happen here? We hit it again, and there's your pullback. How deep is it going to go? We don't know. All right, so that's just the honest truth, guys. We don't know how deep. Is it going to be the real pullback where we're getting a big correction, or is it just another little check back where we can then go back to new all-time highs? And again, time will obviously tell, and I'll use all my expertise to kind of take note of what we're seeing in the charts and give you a heads up as soon as I can. All right, so again, where could we go down to per this correction? So there's a couple levels. One of them is basically right here. So if we zoom in on this chart, you basically look for gap fills and pivot points on the chart. What are pivot points? Pivot points are where a market goes up and then it pulls back. That's a pivot point right there. All right, notice how right here you hit a high, so that becomes the first area of support, 549 on the SPY. In addition, we have a gap fill right down here, which will be key, and then additional pivot points right here as well, where the market went up and then it pulled back, right? And then it went up again. And so you're looking at these different areas where there's likely to be support for areas where you could expect a bounce. And when you get to those levels, you have to watch and say, okay, well, do we break through them after bouncing, or do we just, again, get a bigger bounce and start heading to new all-time highs? Again, these are things that as a technician, every day we get a new candle. What I do is I look very closely at it, and it's a new piece of my puzzle. And every day I say, have my probabilities changed on what it was yesterday? Because it sometimes does, depending on, is it a bull flag, is it a bear flag, does it get negated, does it break a key level? And that's, again, how you're finding out what the most probable outcome for the market is, or a stock, or a crypto, etc. All right, guys, we are after hours. We got to jump to Netflix here. Oh, boy, Netflix just flushed. This is not... Now, listen, it could bounce back, but this is not good for the market if this holds. Okay, so again, just a heads up. Now, listen, it's not a massive move down. We closed around 640. We're only at 617. But either way, this market was hanging on by a thread, right? Again, what I said earlier is very important here. We talked about how you had a scenario where you had great earnings from Taiwan Semi last night, all right, into this morning. Great earnings. They raised guidance. They said there was going to be more capital spending by other companies that's going to even add. They're the ones that supply Apple with chips and NVIDIA with chips. And for the market to not hold those gains today, that's bad. And then you throw on even a little bit of downside on Netflix where it's not an amazing report. That's problematic. Now, I want to show you something here on the chart. So if we look at the daily chart, look at Netflix where it was going into earnings. And I even annotated this up. I took away my trend line from earlier, but let's put that right back in. We had a classic double top. We were just off of that double top right here. So here's your high pivot. We had this massive correction. We went all the way back up and right here at $700. Now, listen, it could have bounced on earnings, but I even discussed this with Martin in the Apex Live Day Trading Room into the close. He's a guest trader that we have on a couple times a week. But the idea is that even if you moved up, there's massive resistance here, and eventually you'd go down, right? So again, just one of those things where you look at this chart, and this is what we call a classic double top. It's a chart that has taken so much. Think about this. This is a mega marathon. And the chart was just grinding, using up more energy and more energy and more energy. And it gets to double top, which is like a brick wall right here. And it's just like, oh man, I can't keep grinding up. This is too much energy needed. So what's the path of least resistance? To the downside. So again, we'll just see what it does in the after hours. But again, last we checked, it is down. It could reverse. In all fairness, it could. It has not yet, but it absolutely could reverse. All right, so Netflix is on watch here, right around 618, make that 615. In terms of a level to buy, it's not down enough where it gets me interested. There's a gap fill at 611. Did we hit 611 yet? I don't think we did on the chart, but I see a gap fill at 611. Oh, we did hit it. Yeah, we did hit 611. We actually pierced it and went down to 600 here. That might have just been right now because I don't remember it going down there before. But either way, nice little flush there. If it continues lower, where's my next technical level? Right here. All right, so see this little pivot? This would be, again, a pivot. Remember, price comes up and comes down. That creates a pivot. And that, again, in theory, we should see some support right around 578, 577. And then after that, obviously, your baseline right down here, which would be looking like around 550 to 560 right there. So those are a couple levels that we'll keep on our radar. Now, there was one other stock that I was going to bring up for earnings. It was ISRG, Intuitive Surgical. This is not a big company in that respect, so it's not something, well, it is a big company, but it's not a big one that I trade. It's a relatively thin one. And this one out of the gate is bouncing a little bit. But again, keep in mind, the stock closed at around 416. It's at 428. It's up 12 bucks on a $400 stock. That's not a massive, massive move, okay? So again, a little bit of a pop on that one in the after hours. I believe they do like surgical automation type robotic stuff. I believe so. Again, I could be wrong on that, but if I remember correctly, Intuitive Surgical, I do believe that is what they do. Other stocks in the after hours, I'm not seeing a lot of movement. I did want to look at where NVIDIA closed, and NVIDIA did have a nice little end of day rally. You can see right here, we kind of had this cup handle and then a little pop into the end of the day. Does that tell me where it's going tomorrow? The answer is no. Doesn't tell me anything about where it's going tomorrow, but nonetheless, we'll keep an eye on that. Bitcoin today down just ever so slightly. Notice again, we went up here. Remember, this high right here was our 0.618 fib. Okay, so that's, again, usually good resistance. And I'm taking that from this high straight down to that low. That's when you do your Fibonacci retrace. You do it from here to here. That's your 618 fib. So that made sense where we were going to pull back there. The key is going to be this is big support. If it comes into that, does it hold and go higher? Or does it hold and break down and then go lower like that? On a technical basis, you assume it holds the support until it breaks. If it breaks, then it breaks. But when you confirm above a level, you have to respect the level until it fails. Okay, and again, can a level fail? Heck yeah. Levels fail all the time. It's all about probability. So the idea is that this level should have about a 70% chance of holding. Now again, leaves 30% chance that it doesn't hold. So we have to just monitor that. But that would be the process. The general probability would be something like this. And then if it doesn't, it's one of those 30% of the time situations where it breaks. And again, if the stock market really collapses, don't be surprised if it breaks. That is my one caveat for why I think Bitcoin could go lower, is if the stock market really has a much bigger correction. We're not just talking about a down 3% day. I'm talking like 20% down on the NASDAQ S&P. Gold today, we hit this little upsloping trend line. It hasn't confirmed above this white line yet, so this white line right here is only minor support. It's almost back to that. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. I'll keep you guys updated in the game plan. If we look at silver today pulled back, starting to hit some key levels of support. Here's a trend line. It might be hard for you guys to see here, but right from here to here and right through here, and that's what we're hitting right now. That is support. Is it a buyable level for me? I am choosing not to buy it at this point based on a couple factors. I'm more looking for a move through back to the scene of the crime of the channel. Here's your channel, right? And so I like scene of the crime retraces, and then I would be more interested in buying. Doesn't mean it will get there, by the way. Many trades I miss, many. I mean, more than I can even count in my trading career. But it's the discipline of only taking the ones that are absolutely the best that keeps me at a high win rate. And by the way, taking only the best still means I have losers. It just means that overall I have much less losers. But you never a trader is going to ever have no losers. It's just the nature of trading, is that things don't work out always the way you think. Oil today, coming back in. You guys know I continue to be bearish on oil. My macro play continues to be that this is eventually going to break. Here's your support right here. I do think this breaks sooner than later, so let's watch tomorrow and see what happens. And then I did add again to my natural gas position when it dipped yesterday. And sure enough, what did we get? We got a nice little start to the bounce. Let's hope this is the beginning of the bounce that I'm looking for. Again, massive sell-off into some key supports here. There's a nice little green candle right here. The question is it going to turn out to be a big bounce? Where would my big bounce target be? Basically right here, center of the M. You guys know this. Well, some of you guys that are new may not know. You have your M pattern, right? So classic M and A, that's a technical pattern. I kind of drew it crappy there, but let me draw it over here. In fact, let me just do this real quick. What we'll do is we'll yank this chart all the way off the screen, give me a nice big flat area here. So what's an M pattern? M patterns are bearish. WV patterns are bullish. So MA right here, there's your M. That's what we kind of have on natural gas. You look for your A A goes up generally to the center point. That would be your target, and then the A completes with another leg to the downside. So what's the W pattern, which is the bullish version of that? It's called a WV pattern. W, V, back to that center point right here, and then it goes up, and that's the bullish version of it. So that's your MA and WV pattern. Okay, guys, I got to get to Netflix earnings, see if I want to trade anything in the after hours, so I'm going to get going. But as always, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Trading the Close. Thank you for supporting VerifiedInvesting.com. It's all about the data, and I preach that because there's so much crap out there. There's so much hype. There's so much narratives being spun. If you just look at the chart, it clears away all that nonsense and allows us to see at least with a high probability. No more are you getting FOMO'd in or FUD'd or whatever those terms are that people use. It's all about the data, and that actually is really the only way I'm able to trade profitably is because I shut that other stuff out and look at the charts. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks again, folks. Take care.